Okay, let's take a look at Business Math B Project 3A, page 1. All right, so we're given a spreadsheet. It says we're going to take a look at selling price using markup based on selling price, and we're asked to fill in the missing amounts on the spreadsheet. Okay, let's start with, I know normally I work left to right, but in this case, let's knock out the more straightforward calculations first. So I'm looking at these middle two columns, which are %MU is markup, %MU markup based on selling price, and complement of markup rate. So we can calculate these two columns solely on our knowledge of what a complement is. Now in geometry we talk about complement being a certain thing, which I will not detail just to avoid confusion. But for the sake of this business math class, when we talk about a complement, we're saying what plus what equals 100. And really we're talking about 100%. Okay. Now, so if you're given one of these things, you know that it, when added to the other thing, must equal 100%. For example, if I look at line 5 about jogging suits, I see that the percent markup based on selling price is 35%. Now, they ask the complement of the markup rate. I know that the complement of 35 must be some number that when I add it to 35, I get 100. Since 35 plus 65 equals 100, that must be my answer. So if I know the percent markup, then I'm able to calculate its complement, right? Because after all, I know the percent markup, and over here, they're just asking for the complement of that rate. Okay, so what is the complement of 30%? 30% plus what percent equals 100? What is the complement of 40%? 40% plus what percent equals 100? And finally, what is the complement of 20%? 20% plus what equals 100? Okay, so you're just filling in those blanks. And again, use the jogging suit line as an example because we know that 35% plus 65% equals 100%, and that's what our complements are all about. Now, if we look at line 4, notice that the blank, instead of being in the complement side, is in the percent markup based on selling price. Now, you could crack open that formula, the percent markup based on selling price formula. However, we know that this box and that box must be complements of each other. So you can use that same complement method and say what plus 85% equals 100%. Okay, and whatever that number is will be your answer here. So those middle columns are all about complements, and those boxes side by side, each of them when added together should equal 100. So that's our percent markup based on selling price, and that's our complement of markup rate. Next, let's take a look at selling price, and you can see they have an asterisk here. It says hint, selling price equals cost divided by complement of markup rate. Cost divided by complement of markup rate. So I can't really show you an example because none of them have oh, here we go. I can show you an example with number 4. So if I wanted to know cost, they've told me that the cost is $199.99. If I divide that by the complement of my markup rate, 85, then I should get that selling price. So they're saying, for example, for line 4 cell phone, I could set this up and I would know that selling price is equal to my cost, which was $199.99, divided by the complement of my markup rate. And remember, it doesn't make sense to just use percentages. We have to convert to a decimal. So 0.85 would be my decimal. So if I take 199.99 divided by 0.85, I should end up with 235.29. So for each of your calculations here, if you want to find selling price, you will take cost and divide it by complement of markup rate, right? You're taking the cost column, dividing it by the complement of markup rate column in order to calculate selling price. And again, if you need to see an example, look at cell phone. Note that $199.99 divided by 0.85, remember to convert that decimal, should give you $235.28. Finally, the last thing we're asked to figure out, and there's just one instance of it right here, is cost. Cost. So, notice that cost is involved in this equation. So couldn't I rearrange it and solve for cost, right? Couldn't I still manipulate that selling price equation? And the answer is yes. I could leave it like this. I could write selling price equals cost divided by complement of markup rate, right? And then you could plug in, again, this is just for line 5 that we have to do this. I could plug in my selling price, which was given to me, right, 30.77, equals cost is what I'm trying to solve for, divided by, I know that the complement of my markup rate is 65%, but I would have to convert that to a decimal before writing it here, right? And then I could plug that in and solve from here, okay? Or if it makes more sense to your brain, you could rearrange this equation. You could rearrange this equation and solve for cost. And by that I mean, if I know that selling price equals cost divided by complement of markup rate, I can move this guy over to the other side through multiplication, right? It's being divided. So if I multiply both sides of my equation by complement of markup rate, that would tell me that cost is equal to selling price multiplied by complement of markup rate. Okay, so again, whichever makes more sense to you, sorry about that, whichever makes more sense to you. So you can just use the selling price equation and plug in what you know and then just rearrange then and solve for cost, or you can take the selling price equation, immediately rearrange for cost, and then plug in what you know and have a more straightforward calculation. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Alright guys, that's it for page 1 of project 3A of Business Math B. Stay tuned for page 3. I think I'll be skipping over page 2. It's pretty straightforward. So I'll see you for page 3.